a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like I never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like I never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like I never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up. I never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like I never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can I never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like
Hello, good evening, and welcome to Autogig TV. My name is Olariwaju Adeshoko. It's another episode of 60 Minutes with Professionals, and I'm not in the studio alone. I'm joined by two amazing experts in the automotive industry. The person of, I call him TBO, Chokpe Bukola Ojo. Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
And also Patrick Alagia. Good evening.
Good evening and good evening, viewers.
I'm sure you'll be saying, Larry, not give me initials now. Don't worry, I'll start calling you PA. This is going to be an amazing and educative program. Okay, so in case you want to join us, the conversation, you can join us on our social media platform, which is www.facebook.com/autogigng. On Instagram, it's at autogigng. On Twitter, is at autogig. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is Autogig TV. Okay, so today we'll be discussing vehicle fuel system, and I'll be asking Patrick, what exactly do we mean by vehicle fuel system, Patrick?
Yeah, thank you very much, Lanre, and viewers at home. I think this episode is going to be very, very interesting because when it comes to fuel, everybody wants to save some little change. So when it comes to fuel, so you need to be very attentive and pick one or two things that you need to pick from this episode. Now, vehicle fuel system has to do with the firing, or I call it the combustion of the engine. Now, for any engine to work, there has to be burning inside the engine. Now, that is what we call the fire triangle. You have the fuel, you have the spark,
Okay.
or the igniter, then you have the oxygen or the air. So those three things has to come together for the engine or for fire to take place. Now, the fuel can either be petrol for an engine, it can be diesel, it can be ethanol, that's the biofuel. It can also be an LPG, that's liquefied petrol gas. It can be CNG, compressed natural gas. It can be nitrogen gas as well. These are examples of fuel that you need to create that fire that makes the engine to work.
Walk. All right. All right, beautiful. TBO, what exactly are the components of vehicle fuel system?
Yeah. Just like Patrick explained, you know, he talked about the what is actually required to get your engine fired. You understand? And that's a combustion. Now, fuel is like the blood of a vehicle.
That runs through the
Yes, just like you have a heart that pumps. So your heart, the heart can be likened to the fuel pump.
Okay.
You understand? We also have a cleaning system for our blood in the body, just like we have the fuel filter. You understand? So now it goes into the engine to make sure that the engine fires. You understand? And produce the necessary torque that you need to work. So the component that we have here, we have the fuel tank because you have to put fuel inside somewhere. You have the fuel tank. You have the fuel pump that does the pumping. You have the fuel filter that filters the fuel to make sure that particles are removed from it. Then you have the fuel line, which are the pipes, the fuel pipes that carries the fuel from the tank to, if the filter is an external filter, it goes into the filter, then to your injector rails. Then you have your fuel injectors. So those are the components of the fuel system of the vehicle.
All right. Beautiful. Okay, so is it good to use fuel treatment all the time? And if we use it, what are the implications of fuel treatment? Patrick?
All right. Thank you very much, Larry. Well, a lot of there's been a lot of arguments when it comes to using fuel treatment or fuel additive. Shall I go maybe a little technical? Okay. In those days, in the early 70s, if you go to any petrol station in Nigeria, you can determine the kind of fuel you want to buy. We used to have the standard, we have the premium, and so on. Now, this is determined by the research octane number of the fuel, the RON. Now, the RON is the level of octane in that fuel. So the higher the octane, the higher the better the fuel will be. So before now, you can go to a filling station, a petrol station, and say, oh, I want a 100 RON petrol, I want a premium, I want a super, I want a standard. But now it is not like that, and we have different kind of engines flooding the market. Now, if you are driving a high-end vehicle with a high-end engine and you're using a petrol with a very low research octane number, RON, like 86 or 85, which is very common in Nigeria, the engine may not perform well. So what people do is that sometimes they use fuel treatment, or they use what they call octane booster sometimes, just to really assist or to augment the RON of that fuel. Now, but it is not too advisable to continue using the fuel treatment. The reason is because after a period, the engine system, the fuel system of your particular vehicle may adapt to that fuel treatment. So anytime you did not use the fuel treatment, the engine may not perform well. So you need to be very, very careful. Go for a good fuel. For me, it is better when you go for a good fuel rather than using an octane booster or using fuel treatment all the time.
All right, you heard it. You have to be very careful while using fuel treatment. This particular question is it's one that really is to bite me, and it can never be overemphasized, Uh, while I was driving down to the studio today, I still had this conversation. We've been hearing about bad fuel, bad fuel, bad fuel. What exactly do we mean by bad fuel, and what are the implications? There are some times we hear this particular filling station are selling bad fuel, and then the other ones are selling bad fuel. What exactly are the implications of this bad fuel?
Okay, thank you very much. Just like Patrick explained, that from the point of refining the fuel, chances are that the some specification are not adhered to. You understand? And we have a lot of people that adulterate fuel here and there. But one of the major challenges I've noticed, which always happen during the rainy season, is that we have some filling stations that the tank they have underground, has been, exposed to rust, and water finds its way into the tank. So when you buy fuel inside that tank, inside that storage, and you have water finding its way into that tank, when you put it inside the car, because we have had that experience a lot of times at the workshop, that when we remove the fuel pump, we begin to see water, and the way water would behave on the fuel, it can be separated really. So we have seen this experience at different times, and just like Patrick said, the octane rating also contributes to that. There are some vehicles that when you open your fuel tank door, you will see strictly unleaded fuel only. You understand? So if you use fuel that is a leaded fuel, definitely to that car, that is a bad fuel. Yeah. So there are several things that people do to even adulterate fuel. You understand? As long as it's going to pose a threat to your fuel pump and your vehicle fuel system generally, it's a bad fuel. You at times when you remove your fuel pump, you see the kind of you can even see sludge on the filter. You'll be wondering that how come this kind of sludge find its way into your tank, and it's through one way, through the nozzle to the tank, and it's very risky. Well, the first component that is exposed to that kind of bad fuel is your fuel pump. You understand? It's fuel pump, and fuel pump they are not cheap. You understand? So most of the time, they get, depending on the design of the vehicle. There are some vehicles that your fuel goes through your fuel filters before it gets to your fuel pump. There are some vehicles that the fuel pump pumps the fuel straight into the filter before sending it to the engine. So peradventure, you don't have your vehicle doesn't have that kind of design, and your fuel pump picks the fuel directly like that. It has already exposed your pump to this kind of dangerous component that can destroy, that can damage your fuel pump. So it could also result into misfiring of the engine. And make your vehicle to misfire. That's why some people, when they buy fuel, it's after they have bought a particular fuel, the check engine light will come up. You understand? And they'll be wondering, I just bought fuel. How come?
I was about to say that because my friend actually told me about this, and if I don't say this, he's going to fight me with this. He told me he bought fuel about 2,000 naira, and then the light is still on. Like, what is happening? Why is the light still on?
Okay, you bought 2,000 naira fuel, and if you look at the present rate of that we pay for fuel now, which is about 125 naira per liter, that means it has well over 10 liters inside the tank, about 17 liters or so. Now, so if you have 17 liters, normally depending on the car, because if you're driving a V8 engine like a Toyota Sequoia, if you buy 2,000 naira fuel, your light might still be on. But if you are driving a sedan that is a 4-cylinder engine, the tank is usually between 55 and 65 liters. So if you put 17 liters there, chances are that your light will be off. It's high. But just like when we were discussing during the first episode about the DIY,
Yeah.
the do-it-yourself, who said, don't always allow your fuel to go down to a point that your fuel alarm is on. You understand? Because it exposes your fuel pump to draw from the sediment that are caused by this bad fuel. You understand? So the fuel pump can easily pick up that, and picking up those kind of dirt, and there's no fuel around the fuel pump to cool it off, because the fuel also cools the fuel pump. The fuel pump will overheat, and the fuel pump can easily pack up. So if you are the kind of person that always allow your fuel to go down before you buy fuel inside your vehicle, you are also exposing your fuel pump unnecessarily.
All right, Patrick,
Thank
you want to
you.
add something to that?
Yes. Bad fuel is not something that is new in this country, whether we like it or not. We've seen situations where people will buy a good fuel and they will just mix it with anything they can find just to make more money. And then there's a particular state that I've been to. I stayed there for like a month, and with a workshop.
Okay.
Most of the vehicles coming to the workshop are having fuel related problem, because majority of the filling stations in that state sells adulterated fuel. They sell fuel that is being refined locally refined fuel. You understand? So what bad fuel can do is so enormous. One of the first things you notice is that you just buy fuel, and the next thing you see is that you try to move and the engine start jerking. Sometime you drive, after a period the vehicle stops. So a lot of things could cause bad fuel could cause so many damage. It could even knock the engine. How can it knock the engine? Because now when you're driving a vehicle and you have a fuel that is low in octane, that is what they call pre-ignition. Now that pre-ignition, because the quality of fuel that is getting to the engine is not enough to match up with the spark that is coming, there's going to be a lot of loose spark. Do you understand? So it's going to be pinging. So that pinging can cause knock to that particular cylinder. So we need to be very, very careful when we buy a fuel. Bad fuel as well can, like I said, it can damage the fuel pump. It can cause problem to your airflow meter and so many other things. It can destroy the injector nozzles and so on. So that's some of the things that bad fuel can cause. So we need to be very careful. You need to stick to a particular filling station. If you're sure that this particular filling station is selling good fuel to you, then you have to stick to it, rather than buying fuel just everywhere until it gets better than what we're experiencing now.
All right, thank you very much. If you're just tuning in, this is Autogig TV, and we are on the program 60 Minutes with Professionals. All right, I still have in the studios with me Patrick and TBO. We've been discussing vehicle fuel system. Okay, we won't go for a commercial break right now, and when we come back, we'll be taking some of our questions on our social platforms. In case you also want to join in the conversation, you can join us via our social media platforms, which is www.facebook.com/AutogigNG. On Instagram is at AutogigNG. On Twitter is at Autogig. Also, you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is Autogig TV. Stay tuned and don't go nowhere.
I never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like I never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I
All right, welcome back to Autogig TV. In case you're just joining in, this is Autogig TV, and this is the program 60 Minutes with Professionals. We're about to go into our question segment now. In case you also want to join in the conversation, you can also join via our social media platform, which is www.facebook.com/AutoGigNG. And also on Instagram is at AutoGigNG. On Twitter is at Autogig. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is Autogig TV. All right, I have a question coming from Facebook now, and this is coming from Usman. Usman from Kaduna. Usman from Kaduna is asking, my engine seems to be consuming excess fuel. What can I do about it? Toyota Camry 2009. My engine seems to be consuming excess fuel. What can I do about it? Patrick, you want to take that for us?
Okay. Thank you very much. When it comes to fuel consumption,
Okay.
first and foremost, we need to be certain that the engine is actually consuming fuel, because sometimes filling stations sometimes matters. If you're buying from filling station A and tomorrow you buy the same amount from another filling station, you feel and the fuel just get finished within a short period of time, you feel there's a problem. So you have to be sure that it is the same quantity of fuel that is in the tank. That is the first thing that you need to know. Now, a lot of factor can cause excess fuel consumption, some of which we are taking so lightly. Number one, leakage in the exhaust system can cause excess fuel consumption. Now, if maybe the silencer nets or there is any form of leakage in the exhaust system, that particular engine will be consuming excess fuel. Now, if there is a problem with the catalytic converter, that's the catalyst, that particular engine will be consuming excess fuel as well. If the airflow meter is equally bad, the engine will be consuming excess fuel. If your oxygen sensor is bad, the engine will be consuming excess fuel. Before I continue, I want to make you understand that there are a lot of things that works with the fuel system besides the fuel pump and the injector. Your airflow meter, your oxygen sensors, your AF sensor, even the throttle position sensor, your throttle pedal works with the fuel system as well. If there is a problem with the throttle position sensor, the engine may be consuming excess fuel than normal. Now, besides that, if the tire pressure is low, the engine may be consuming excess fuel as well, because you're driving on a low tire pressure. There's going to be much resistance to your movements. Because of that, engine will consume more fuel to be able to move. Then sometime if the vehicle is not well aligned, as basic or as simple as it may sound, if the vehicle is not well aligned, it could cause excess fuel consumption. Now, if you connect your fans directly, if the engine is running in what we call overcooling state, the engine could consume more fuel. A lot of people will remove their thermostats. They will connect the fan directly. Normally, after between 10 to 15 minutes of starting the engine in the morning, the temperature should get to 95 degrees Celsius. But by the time you have taken off the thermostat, you connect the fans directly. When you start that engine for some time, for 30 minutes, the engine is still below 70 degrees Celsius. When the temperature is at that, when the engine is running at that low temperature, it is going to be consuming more fuel, and that could even damage the engine.
All right, thank you very much, Patrick. We also have another question coming from Miriam. Miriam from Ikoyi. Miriam from Ikoyi is asking, every time I start my vehicle, it does hard start. Is it possible that the fuel pump is bad? Under Accord 2012. Miriam from Ikoyi is asking this question. She says, every time I start my vehicle, it does add that. Is it possible that my fuel pump is bad?
Okay.
TBO, yeah.
Yeah. There are several things that could cause a start in a vehicle. Could it be the fuel pump? Yes, it could be. Um, could it be that the fuel filter is bad? Yes, it could be. Like I said, there are several things that causes at start. Part of it is also if your crankshaft position sensor is bad, your vehicle can do a start. There is something also called the starting the engine coolant temperature sensor. Yeah, if it's bad, if it is bad, some people call it cold start
Cold start switch.
switch. Yes, if it is bad, you are likely to experience a start also. If your injectors are bad, if they are very dirty, or probably maybe they are bad, the vehicle could do a start. Although when it gets to that level, that means your because your vehicle can do a start, and after it has started, the engine will run smoothly. But if after starting it's still not running smoothly, then you could be thinking about, okay, probably maybe is a is maybe one of your coils is bad, or your spark plug, or your nozzles has to be looked into. But just like I said, you can't conclude that your fuel pump is the reason for your start. It's important that you take your car for diagnosis.
All right. Also on from Facebook, most of these questions are coming from Facebook. All right. So my engine brings out, black smoke, and my mechanic told me that my injectors are bad. We serviced it the same thing. We changed it the same thing, but the issue still persists. Toyota Highlander 2014. This is coming from Shayo from Ijegun. Shayo from Ijegun. Patrick, you want to say something about black smoke?
Yeah, yeah. All right. We have three types of mixture for any IC engine. For IC, I mean internal combustion engine. What are the three types of mixtures? We have the ideal mixture, which is the fuel and the air, they are mixing properly. Then we have the lean mixture, where you have more air than fuel in the air fuel mixture ratio. Then we have the rich mixture, where you have more fuel than air in the air fuel mixture ratio. So where you are having black smoke, that is a sign of rich mixture. The engine is going to be consuming more fuel. The first thing to do is to have the vehicle scanned. By the time you diagnose the vehicle, there is going to be some trouble code. Then when you narrow down the trouble code, you'll be able to know what to do to solve that particular problem. But some of the things that could cause that black smoke is number one, if your injectors are bad, it could cause the black smoke. If the airflow meter is bad, it could cause the black smoke. Some vehicle uses what they call MAP sensor, manifold absolute pressure sensor, instead of the airflow meter. Some has both the airflow meter and the MAP sensor together. If the MAP sensor is bad as well, it could bring out that black smoke, and it will affect the performance of the engine. Also, if your plugs are bad, it could cause black smoke. Now, sometime you take your vehicle to a workshop for service. Even before the vehicle gets to the workshop, the engine is working fine. You just want to do your normal routine service. You want to change the oil filter, and the spark plug. Some technicians, what they do is that by the time they want to replace the plug, instead of carefully releasing the plug inside, they'll just drop it. By the time you drop the plug into the engine, it closes the electrode. Do you understand? Once the electrode closes, it's going to be bringing black smoke. The engine will misfire, and it will bring black smoke as well. So like I said, there are several things that could cause that black smoke. So the first thing to do is to diagnose the engine. By the time you diagnose it, you will get to know what is really causing that particular black smoke. But take note, anytime your engine is bringing out black smoke, know that it is consuming fuel more than normal. So you need to have it checked.
All right. We'll go again. This is from Vanessa from Okota. Vanessa from Okota is asking, last week, after I bought fuel in my Infiniti QX56 2013 model, I discovered that the check engine light came on. I took the vehicle to my technician for scanning and I got this code P0456 in bracket evaporative emission small leak detected. Is it that the fuel I bought is bad? Please help me. Vanessa wants to know if the fuel she bought is bad. So
Okay. Well, the is a common trouble code that a lot of people face, and they report at the workshop. Um, what could cause it could be maybe the fuel tank was not properly closed after the fuel has been fully dispensed into the tank. So, because it has to be airtight, so chances are that the fuel tank cover was not properly closed.
okay.
It could also be that maybe, yeah, when I say it's not properly closed, it could be that probably maybe not follow the thread properly in closing it, or probably maybe the o-ring around it probably maybe it has caught away or whatever. So those kind of things can cause this particular fault code. But at the same time, if your ignition is on, your ignition is on while fuel is being dispensed into your car, if you throw up this light, it will show you this code. Yeah. Then thirdly, if those the first two areas I mentioned are properly taken care of, chances are that your vacuum pipes are leaking.
Okay. Okay, so Vanessa, you might want to also check out your vacuum pipes. All right, this is at Karen on Twitter. At Karen on Twitter is saying, I always experience engine hard start on my Toyota Venza 2013 model. After driving for 20 to 30 minutes and turned off the engine, it says fuel pump. We fixed it. We fixed a brand new fuel pump. It says the same thing. We serviced the injectors, still the same thing. What can we do? This is Karen on Twitter.
All right, Karen. First and foremost, at start, from what you said is that after you've driven for like 20-30 minutes and you turn off the engine, you try to start it again, it's you experience at starting. Yeah, for that Venza, that particular engine is a 2GR engine, 3.5 liters. It's a very common engine for Toyota and Lexus vehicle. Now, I'm speaking from experience. I've had that experience as well, where we replace a brand new fuel pump. These injectors, we even replace the injectors. We're still having the same problem. We replace a starter motor, that's Kickstarter. We still had the same problem. So what we did was we noticed that by the time you drive for like 20 minutes or 30 minutes and you turn off the engine, you leave it for like 5-10 minutes, you try to start again, that is when you experience that at start. It means that it's taking time to build up pressure for it to start again. You understand? So what we did was that particular vehicle has a pressure release valve or pressure regulator on the injector rail. So the injectors we replaced, we bought single injectors, not with the rail. Now because that pressure regulator is on the rail, and that was actually the culprit. You understand? So the next thing we did was we replaced the injectors that together with the rail that has that fuel pressure regulator, that fuel release valve. That was what solved the problem. And I've seen couple of people complaining the same thing. So if you have that problem, just go and replace the injectors, complete injectors with the rail that has the pressure release valve. it will take care of that problem.
All right, thank you very much, Patrick. Uh, okay, so I drive a Volkswagen Passat CC 2014 model. After driving for 1 hour, the engine trips off. I start it. If I start it, it won't start until after 5 minutes. It will start my so my technic. Okay, it will start until after 5 minutes. My technician says we should replace the fuel pump. We did, and the problem still persists. Please, what can I do? This is Ebuka from Asaba.
Um, well, you also need to be put inside your car because we have a lot of fake fuel
Fuel
pump around.
pumps.
A lot of them. Actually, I need to make it clear to people that original fuel pumps are not cheap. You understand? Because, like the case of the Venza that Patrick was mentioning the other time, I think the brand new fuel pump for Venza OEM is about very close to 200,000. And in the market, you still see another one for 45,000.
Wow.
Definitely, definitely, they are not going to serve you the same way. You know, you have to consider that. But when, like the case of our friend from Asaba, yeah, it could also be your crankshaft position sensor. It could cause that problem also. You know, after you have driven for some time, and it goes up like that. But the most important thing you need to do is to diagnose the vehicle, get the fault code. The fault code will point you directly to where the problem is coming from, you know, because it trips off in motion. So,
I think I need to add a little to what he has just said. Now, that particular engine has primary fuel pump and secondary fuel pump. Now, most time people replace the primary fuel pump, that's the one in the tank, because that engine is actually it is direct fuel injection system. So it has a secondary fuel pump on the injector rail. Now, for Volkswagen, Volkswagen has a there was a recall a couple of years ago for the vehicle that has that engine. There is a particular pressure sensor on the secondary fuel pump that is always giving issues. You understand? So we've had situation where we replace the secondary fuel pump, we're still having the same problem because we bought a used one in our local market here. We still had the same problem
One of 45,000.
until yeah. I'm even talking about the secondary fuel pump now, the one on the rail, until we had to order another one that is upgraded. So they updated it because it has a problem. So they did a recall. So we had to buy the upgraded one. That was what solved the problem. So if you're driving a Passat, a Volkswagen, that any FSI, Volkswagen or TSI that has both primary and secondary fuel pump, if you're having that problem, the problem is most likely, that's if you've dealt with the primary fuel pump in the tank, the problem is most likely the secondary fuel pump, that's the one on the rail. So please, but like Tokbe said, the most important thing is that you have your vehicle diagnosed, because the sensors, the actuators are components that they won't tell you that they are bad. Looking at them physically, you won't even know if they are bad until you dialogue with them with a computer. So have it checked, and when you do that, I think you will find solution to it. So
All right, thank you very much. On that note, we've come to the end of the program today. In case you're just joining in, this is 60 Minutes with Professionals, and it has been an amazing one so far. Educative, as usual. Before we call it a day on the program, you want to just recap for us before all the things we've been learning so far about the vehicle view system.
okay.
In 1 minute, please.
Okay. Viewers, I hope you enjoyed our session this evening. My advice to you is that the kind of fuel you buy, you have to be very careful. During rainy season, we have bad fuel during rainy season as far as Nigeria and Lagos is concerned, because most of the reservoirs are not well taken care of. Fine water and other dirty things find their way into the tank. So you have to be very careful you buy your fuel, especially during rainy season. Then another thing you need to know is that your fuel system needs to be cleaned at least once in 6 months or every 15,000 kilometers. What I mean is that don't just take your vehicle for oil and oil filter replacement. Every third service, let them drop the tank, clean the fuel, the strainer, the fuel strainer. If there is a fuel filter with the fuel pump, let them clean it. You do that at least once in 6 months. And another thing you need to understand is that the fuel pump itself has a lifespan, between 60 to 90,000 kilometers. So if you have been driving your vehicle ever since you bought the vehicle, you have not replaced the fuel pump, and you've driven up to 70, 80,000 kilometers, just know that any moment from that time, the pump could pack up. So please have that at the back of your mind.
All right, thank you very much. Also, TBO, you want to also talk about Autogig training and academy?
Yeah. Just before I talk about that, I also want to add to what Patrick said.
Okay.
Because we have noticed that a lot of fuel tank, when you open it up, you see a lot of rust inside the fuel tank. And I think this is even common with a particular brand that Kia and Hyundai, and we have a lot of customers that complain of their fuel pump, and we noticed that the fuel tank gives way to rust easily. So make sure that your fuel tank is cleaned regularly, like Patrick said.
Once in every 6 months.
Yes, and at the same time, whenever you are changing your components, I'm an advocate for OEM spare parts, original spare parts. So don't buy fake fuel filter. Your fake fuel filter can damage your fuel pump also. So you have to take note of that. Now, everything we have been saying there, if you come to our training school, if you want to know more about automotive engineering, then you are going to get your mind blown, because we actually train with the best and the most comprehensive automotive product that is available globally right now in Nigeria. We use our goal to train people is in form of 3D animation and simulation, and we have our training academy that you come in for practicals and classroom training. We don't limit it to technical training. We also do non-technical training. We expose you to spare parts. How do you have to understand spare parts, how to use electronic part catalogs and all that. We groom you for the industry. If you are jobless now, probably maybe you are thinking of changing career, Autogig Academy is the place for you to be at this moment. So we have a couple of training that are running at the moment, and you can send email to training@autogig.com.ng if you want to know more about this. Thank you.
In case you're just tuning in, this is Autogig TV, and this is the program 60 Minutes with Professionals. Thank you very much, Chokwe Bukola Ojo and Patrick Alagia.
Thank you.
I hope that when we call you next week Sunday, you'll answer our call again.
Definitely.
On that note, you can, in case you're just joining in, like I said before, you can also check out the program on our YouTube channel, 60 Minutes with Professionals, and shortly after this live program, it's going to be uploaded on our YouTube channel. Alright, don't forget that you can also join us next week Sunday at 6 p.m. Nigerian time. I still remain your humble host, Olayiwaju Adeshoko. Bye for now.
I never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotions.